Good day, everybody. It's Andrew here, and welcome back to another update on stimulus and Social Security changes. As always, lately we're talking about the stimulus check for seniors that Bernie Sanders is trying to include in this next stimulus package. Well, if you watched my video from this morning, we talked about inflation, and the inflation data just came out today saying that we have had the highest inflation last month in October that we've had since 1990. Yes, an inflation rate of 6.2% from this October compared to last October is the highest inflation we've had since 1990, December of 1990. Just completely insane. And it's really making things more difficult for seniors and people who are disabled who are living on a fixed income. Again, just another reason why we need more Social Security benefits and the Social Security stimulus check. Well, Joe Manchin came out and basically said the opposite, and he is saying that this inflation news is actually a reason to not do stimulus checks. Well, of course, progressives are going to continue to fight, but we have to talk about Joe Manchin and exactly what he just said. So let's discuss the details in this video, but first, as always, hit the like button, hit subscribe, and please share this channel with anybody who you think might find this helpful. This is my full-time job, guys, and it's truly an honor to share updates with you guys and give you the information you need as things continue to develop. So every single time you share my content, it really goes a long way in supporting my work. And the best thing you can do if you really want to support my work is subscribe to my second channel. That is going to be more of an entertainment channel with a little bit of news mixed in. So if you want to subscribe to that, it's called The Andrew Paulo Show, and it's going to be in the comments of this video. So if you go down to the comments, I'm going to have the link to that channel pinned. And I really appreciate you guys supporting my work and subscribing to my second channel. And as a thank you for that, I'm going to be giving away multiple stimulus checks. I believe I'm probably going to get that channel started in about 2 weeks. We're moving right now. Me and my wife just bought a house, so I'm not able to start that channel yet. But in about 2 weeks, I'm going to get that channel started. And currently my plan is to give out a stimulus check each week, at least for the first couple of months, see how things go. But just as a thank you for subscribing, I'm going to be giving away stimulus checks. So again, thank you so much for everyone who has already subscribed. We're already at like 4,000 subscribers on that channel. So a huge, huge thank you to every single person. 4,000 people have already subscribed, and we still have not even launched the channel. Huge. The community here is so strong. And I just want to say it again, guys. This community here is for seniors and for those who are disabled and anybody who wants to support that community, because I consider myself a voice for seniors and a voice for those who are disabled to make sure that our government cannot ignore us anymore. Guys, President Biden promised all of these things we talk about on this channel. These aren't things I'm making up. These are things that President Biden promised on the campaign trail. I mean, he promised to increase Social Security benefits. He promised to increase SSI and SSDI. And he quite frankly promised to do the $200 per month stimulus for Social Security benefits. So the least they could do is the $1,400 stimulus check for seniors. Things continue to develop, and they are working on the stimulus package. So there is still a possibility we'll get the $1,400 stimulus check in this current stimulus package. And with the inflation data coming out high, progressives and a lot of experts are saying, hey, if things are getting more expensive, this is just another reason why seniors need a stimulus check, right? And it makes sense. If your costs are going up, it's just another reason why you need your stimulus check to help you get through these tough times. Well, Joe Manchin, of course, is making things difficult as always. And he came out and said, first, it's kind of funny if you see, he has a pinned comment on his Twitter here, where it's pinned, meaning it's going to stay at the top of his Twitter page until he unpins it, basically advertising the fact that they approved the physical stimulus package, which is spending $1.2 trillion. And it's all over his post. He says, the bipartisan infrastructure bill represents a historic investment in West Virginia's infrastructure, around $6 billion over the next 5 years. Here are some of the investments that the bipartisan infrastructure bill will bring to West Virginia. And on that post, he has a picture showing all of the spending that's going to happen in this plan. More than $43 million for West Virginia airports, more than $768 million for energy and natural resource priorities, including an estimated $600 million for West Virginia broadband deployment. So he made this post basically advertising how much they're spending on physical infrastructure. Then directly under there, he responds to the inflation news this morning saying, by all accounts, the threat posed by record inflation to the American people, is not quote unquote transitory, referring to what President Biden has been saying for months, and is instead getting worse. From the grocery store to the gas pump, Americans know the inflation tax is real, and DC can no longer ignore the economic pain that Americans feel today. So, the very first post on his page is broadcasting that he spent $1.2 trillion on roads, bridges, and highways, which directly helps him get reelected in his home state because a lot of donors that pay for his campaigns work for these types of companies. Well, then under there, he says, well, but you know what? Inflation's getting worse. We have to address this and we have to spend less. He didn't exactly specifically refer to the stimulus package, but that's basically what he's talking about. Let's be honest here. So it's very hypocritical of him to advertise spending $1.2 trillion on physical stimulus, but then immediately afterwards say, oh, but we have to cut back on spending. We can't do stimulus checks. It's funny how that kind of tends to happen in Congress, right? These congressmen that say, oh, you know what? We can't give stimulus checks. We can't increase Social Security benefits. We're going to end up like Venezuela. But then at the same time, they create tax cuts for the rich, which are even more than the stimulus checks would have cost. Or then they spend $1.2 trillion on building roads, bridges, and highways. But then they say, oh, inflation's getting too high. We can't spend $200 billion on stimulus checks, which is a fraction of what the physical stimulus package costs, right? So this is what Joe Manchin is currently saying. And let's talk about Joe Manchin. And first of all, I want to give you guys some reassurance. Progressives are still fighting for that $1,400 stimulus check. So don't worry too much. There's still a really good chance it's going to end up in this package. It's just there's a chance it could end up being smaller. And this is going to be a battle. It's not going to be as quick and easy as we had hoped. Nancy Pelosi is hoping to approve the stimulus plan in the House next week. And then we were optimistically hoping to get it done in the Senate in the next 2 weeks by the first week of December. Well, based off of this inflation data, it looks like Joe Manchin might be digging in. So we're not sure. We can only speculate. But it's looking like this battle for the next stimulus package could take longer than it's expected, right? And we shouldn't be surprised because it always takes longer than expected. But currently, it seems like inflation is the main reason why Joe Manchin is digging in. And now we're expecting the negotiations to take a bit longer than we had recently been expecting. Chuck Schumer responded and said, quote unquote, as I have said repeatedly, when this bill is passed, it will be fully paid for and reduce inflationary pressures. I repeat, reduce inflationary pressures. It will not be inflationary. So Chuck Schumer is trying to convince Joe Manchin that this stimulus package will not make inflation worse. It will actually reduce inflationary pressure. But guys, that is something that Joe Manchin continues to argue. Let's talk about Joe Manchin and the fact that he always finds some reason to try and reduce stimulus, but really he has a lot of bias when it comes to doing these things because we have billionaires who pay for Joe Manchin's campaigns. We have coal companies in his home state who don't want him to let Democrats approve climate change initiatives. And then we have these billionaires who don't want their taxes to go up. And of course, Joe Manchin is someone who's not really in favor of increasing taxes on the rich either. Well, this new headline that just came out from CNBC reveals a lot about where Joe Manchin stands when it comes to Republicans. This Republican billionaire, it's a billionaire who votes Republican. His name is Ken Langone. And he said that he is going to hold a fundraiser for Democrat Joe Manchin. So a Republican billionaire holding a fundraiser for a Democrat. What does that tell you? And this title says, GOP billionaire Ken Langone says he will hold a fundraiser for Democrat Joe Manchin, who has worked to shrink President Biden's agenda, shrink stimulus, and shrink Social Security increases. He went on to say that he's going to have one of the biggest fundraisers he's ever had. He called Joe Manchin special, saying he's precious and a great American. Joe Manchin, the same person who pushed back against raising taxes on millionaires and raising the corporate tax rate above 25%, and also made them reduce the stimulus package from $3.5 trillion to 1.5, and even now at 1.5, he's still fighting about getting it done. So if we have a billionaire Republican voter holding a fundraiser for Joe Manchin, I mean, I think that's all the evidence you need, guys. I mean, Joe Manchin is kind of serving Republicans as much as he's serving Democrats. And I'm sorry, but if you're in the Democratic Party and you have a president, a Democratic president who wants to increase Social Security benefits, who wants to approve stimulus checks for seniors, and you're against that, and then you have Republican donors that want to hold a fundraiser for Joe Manchin, I mean, gosh, it's just such a frustrating time for seniors, guys. And I really believe that if it wasn't for Joe Manchin, we would probably already have the stimulus check for seniors. And quite frankly, we would probably already have a permanent increase in Social Security benefits. But with that said, we do have Joe Manchin in the Democratic Party, and we do have to work with him in order to get these things done. And I just want to make one thing clear. When it comes to the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, personally, I always try and stay neutral. I know half of my viewers are Republican and half of my viewers are Democrats, so I really try not to take sides. But when it comes to stimulus specifically, we have to be honest with ourselves. Democrats are really the only ones that want to do more stimulus checks, and Republicans, quite frankly, don't. I mean, there might be a handful of them that do, but they're not even willing to vote for it because the rest of their party would scapegoat them if they did. So, guys, that's where things stand today. We have Joe Manchin saying that with the inflation data coming back so high, we should pump the brakes and maybe wait and see if inflation goes down before we approve this stimulus package. So, will that delay the stimulus package? Probably. How long is it going to delay it? We'll have to wait and see. Of course, President Biden could scratch Joe Manchin's back, try and include something in that package that'll help him in his state. That would probably be the easiest thing to do. Of course, I know that seems shady as well. That's usually how politics go, right? Joe Manchin also said that he's not sure if he's going to run for re-election in 2024. So a lot of people are saying, since Joe Manchin is about 2 years away from potentially retiring, one of the reasons he is catering to his corporate donors is because he wants to get a cushy $1 million corporate job once he retires. So that's speculation, but quite frankly, it's a real possibility, because if Joe Manchin says to himself, hey, I'm going to retire in a couple of years, I don't want to piss off my donors who could either give me, $1 million to go speak at a speaking event, or even give me like a job being on the board of their company for $1 million a year. He's, when a politician is close to retiring, that gives them a huge bias when it comes to getting things done, because they really start catering to their corporate donors even more. So something to keep in mind. Joe Manchin definitely has a lot of bias at play, and honestly, it doesn't seem like he's doing what's best for the American people. And let's be honest, folks, the frustration with Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, and quite frankly the entire Democratic Party, is growing to a fever pitch. I mean, when you have a party that controls the House, controls the Senate, and controls the White House, and it's taken them 6 months, and they still haven't gotten this stimulus package done, it's quite frankly reasonable that frustration is getting really, really big. Well, especially with Joe Manchin. And recently in the news, you might have seen this, we actually had some activists who swarmed Joe Manchin and basically were protesting him at his car. They surrounded his car, and they wouldn't let him leave the parking lot. Now, they mostly seemed peaceful. It was maybe a couple of dozen protesters. They were protesting him for not wanting to approve the stimulus package. Now, although they seemed peaceful, I think we can all agree, when there is a protest happening, especially put yourselves in Joe Manchin's footsteps, and your car is being surrounded by protesters with signs who are screaming at you, I think it's reasonable to think that you might not be in a safe position, right? Because these protests can escalate quickly. Now, the protest was peaceful. No one got hurt, so I'm not trying to slam these protesters, but I just want to ask you guys, do you think this protest was okay, or do you think they went too far and they kind of made Joe Manchin feel like his life was at risk? But let me know your thoughts, guys. I'm going to show you this clip, and it'd be interesting to see what you guys have to say. So let's take a look and see exactly what happened.
Moderate Democrat Joe Manchin, the key vote, who's objected to much of the spending bill. Well, he's feeling the heat from the far left out on the street. So look at this. Environmental activists swarming Senator Manchin, following from his D.C. houseboat, then surrounding his Maserati as he tried to drive out of a parking garage.
Is money that important, Joe Manchin? Is it more important than my life, Joe Manchin? Is it more important than your kid's life?
So security guards eventually came to his rescue. Now, remember, back in September, activists kayaked up to his houseboat, urging him to back the bill, which is at least a lot more civilized than that behavior.
So what I did not understand about that until today is that happened yesterday morning as he was going to Capitol Hill. And remember yesterday I told you about the interviews he did?
Yes.
So those happened around 8:30, one on MSNBC and then one on CNN. Brett's was the night before. I encourage everyone to go find the interview on MSNBC if you really want to know where Joe Manchin stands on Build Back Better. This interview, Dana, went for 15 minutes, it seemed like. And he was taking every hardball question from, you could argue, the left perspective in Washington. He was just batting it away. Talked about, hey, let's wait right now. Let's see if inflation's transitory. He talked about China having 3,000 coal-fired plants and building 500 more. Talked about energy in America, saying we've got the technology here. Let's not rely on OPEC. He just knocked off every argument one after the other. Watch the interview. You'll know where Manchin stands, and then you'll probably ask yourself, can this really get through, signed into law?
And he doesn't. You think about the guy that says is the money worth more than my life? Like, your life's not in danger, all right? But if you want to be persuasive to Senator Manchin, that would be another way that you could do that.
All right, folks, let me know what you guys think. Do you think that protest was okay? Do you think it was warranted? Do you support it? Or do you think they went too far and potentially made Joe Manchin feel unsafe? I mean, I'll give you my opinion on this. I personally support protests. I think protesting peacefully is a beautiful thing. I really do, especially when it comes to things like helping the American people get the stimulus that they need and deserve. Now, do I understand if Joe Manchin might have felt unsafe? Yes, I do. And could there have been a potentially better way to have done that? Probably. But at the end of the day, everybody was okay and nobody got hurt. But I do want to say that it's nice to see people out there actually standing up for what is right and standing up for the American people to get the stimulus that they deserve. And honestly, it's in a sense, it's kind of what I feel I do here on this channel. Here on this channel, to be a voice for seniors and a voice for those who are disabled, we continue to get our message out there, so Congress cannot ignore what we do, and they cannot ignore what the American people deserve. And I mean, it's been pretty well documented that one of the main reasons the third stimulus check got done was because the social media movement was so strong, because people were posting on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, and the narrative of a third stimulus check was kept alive because of people like us who continued to be a strong voice and gather as a community to make sure that our government was taking care of its American people and, quite frankly, giving them the stimulus checks they deserve, which is basically just your own tax money coming back as a tax refund, right? So with that said, Joe Manchin seems to be digging in because inflation is coming back so high, but progressives continue to push back, and they are still trying to include this stimulus check in this next stimulus package. So we should have a lot of updates in the next couple of weeks. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will keep you updated on this next stimulus package, Social Security changes, and daily news updates as well. And thank you so much for watching. So until the next video, take care and have a great day.